Hi, Greytiger here, and welcome to a new ongoing series where we will take a look at missing lords for every race from games 1, 2 and 3. We will cover their lore, their tabletop abilities, possible mechanics, and the likelihood that they will appear in game 3. At the end of these videos, I'll be listing several lord options where you can vote for who I should cover next. Or if none of them take your fancy, you can add your own choice in the comments. I'll tally the votes after a few days, and the lord with the most votes will become the focus of the next video, assuming there is enough lore and information to go on. So let's get into it with our first lord, one of the greatest Beastlords ever to have roamed the forests of the old world, Gorthor the Cruel. Over the centuries, the lands of the Empire in Bretonnia have suffered countless attacks by savage beastmen warherds, with the names and deeds of many beastlords recorded in their combined histories, and carved in their headstones that can be found deep in the forests where men rarely dare to tread. Yet among these leaders, few have matched the savagery and the cunning, and wrought such sheer devastation as Gorthor. In the year 1520 of the imperial calendar, while a large contingent of the Empire's armies were off fighting in the lands of Araby, Gorthor gathered the numerous warherds from the forests and mountains of the Empire into a bray herd large enough to lay waste to the lands of men. He had received a vision from the dark gods of a world set aflame, which he believed blessed him as their emissary. As is the way with beastmen, as the warherds joined his cause, he faced several challenges by leaders of warherds who believed it was their destiny to lead. Each challenge called for single combat, where the winner, he who survived, would become Beastlord. Gorthor, while not the largest nor the strongest of beastmen, possessed an animalistic will that others lacked, and won out over a succession of beastlords. The first he killed with his bare hands, choking the life out of his opponent. The second he ran through with his horns, spilling their guts out onto the ground as they watched in horror with their final breath. In all, Gorthor would face more than 30 challenges, and emerge victorious with his leadership and worth proven beyond doubt. With the largest bray herd that had ever existed under his control, Gorthor rode into the territory of the forest goblins, led by Bogri Eight Eyes, who had long held dominion over much of the Middle Mountains. The goblins, well aware of the rumours of Gorthor's visions, offered their services for a share of the spoils, but the Beastlord cared not for their help, and instead slaughtered them, all but wiping their kind from the mountain region. The invasion of the Empire would soon begin, with several towns in Ostland falling before him, with their garrisons proving incapable of even slowing the horde's advance. Gorthor would slaughter the inhabitants, every man, woman, and child, save one. They would be allowed to live in order to spread terror among the populace. Due to this, the legend of Gorthor was quick to spread across the Empire, with stories of a demon in bestial form. Within weeks, Ostland was nothing more than a series of smoking ruins, with those who could having fled to the perceived protection of other provinces. With Gorthor's rampage showing no signs of stopping, he crossed into Hochland. The remnants of the Ostland state troops and the forces of Hochland having already joined forces, conscripting every man old enough to wield a weapon in order to repel the beastmen's assault. Their efforts would prove futile, as Hochland was torn apart, their towns suffering the same fate as their neighbours, until only the vast walled city of Hurgig was left standing. Its defences had been bolstered as the outriders and pistoliers of Hochland had fought a number of hit-and-run engagements to buy them time. The battle for the city was bloody beyond compare, with high casualties on both sides, but after 3 weeks of fighting, Gorthor's horde burst through the outer defences. The streets soon ran red with blood as the slaughter reached new heights. The Elector Count, Michael Ludendorff, withdrew into his palace, ordering the city set ablaze to deny the beastmen their prize. But with the beastmen on the verge of victory, the knights of the Empire who had been fighting in Araby returned, thundering through the city streets, cutting down dozens of warherds. With his Brayhood beginning to lose the fight, Gorthor called out to Mikael, challenging him to single combat, which valiantly, or foolishly, he accepted. Their duel has since become legend, as they went blow for blow to the point of near exhaustion, until Gorthor impaled the Elector Count upon his spear, lifting him high in the air for all to see. With his dying breath though, as the beastman roared in victory, Mikael thrust his runefang deep into Gorthor's chest. The two opponents died in that instant, collapsing to the ground. With their leader dead, the fight was taken out of the remaining beastmen, who fled back into the mountains, leaving the smoking ruins of Hurgig far behind. On the tabletop, Gorthor would ride on a Tuskor chariot, along with his trusted retainer, Bagrar. This could be his final mount option in-game, with Bagrar being added as an ancillary that could improve the stats of Gorthor's chariot. While Gorthor is not a Bray shaman, he does have some magical ability, which is reflected in the Scion of the Dark Gods ability. This sees Gorthor enshrouded in a corona of dark energy that lashes out to smite and confound nearby enemies. At the start of each friendly magic phase, a spell could be randomly chosen from the Lore of Death, which Gorthor could then cast as a bound spell. This ability in-game could be as simple as a bound spell with 2 or 3 uses, that does damage to, and reduces the leadership of, enemies in an area around him. Gorthor also has access to several magic items on the tabletop. The Impaler is a monstrous magical spear, which rends the flesh of his foes as he wounds them. It gives him the Killing Blow special rule. The Impaler could probably be an item that Gorthor can gain when he hits a certain level, perhaps level 6 or 7. It could provide increased armor piercing, or armor sundering, and cause a bleeding effect. The Skull of Mugra is an enchanted item mounted upon Gorthor's chariot. It's the skull of the Lord of Minotaurs, Mugra, and it ensures the chariot strikes with a thunderous momentum. When rolling for impact hits, the skull allows an extra dice to be rolled with the highest result chosen. This could be one of Gorthor's quests, with the battle fought against a Minotaur army led by Mugra. The skull, once gained, would provide increased speed, mass, and a large increase to charge bonus. The final item is the Cloak of the Beastlord. This is an enchanted item made from the hides of Bray shamans that Gorthor killed in his rise to power. It gives him iron command of his horde, increasing the range at which friendly units can use his leadership value to 18 inches. In-game, this could provide increased control in the local region or province, and increased leadership and leadership range on the battlefield. This probably could be a second item, gained when Gorthor reaches a certain level. So what unique mechanics might we see for Gorthor? Well, let's look to the lore for some ideas. We could perhaps have a mechanic tied to his nightmarish visions of the future, which in the lore are part of the reason for him being able to amass such a large Bray herd. However, basing a mechanic around visions of the future could prove very tricky indeed. Perhaps a better option could be tied to the dark energy that surrounds him in battle. As he kills enemies on the battlefield, we could have a meter that is filled, which unlocks more powerful bound spells throughout the battle. The dark energy accrued could then spill over to the campaign, where additional corruption and control bonuses are conveyed on the local region. If Gorthor fights in a region with high corruption, then the dark energy could start higher than the base value in battle, allowing the battlers in campaign to feed off one another, and giving the player reason to ensure that they spread their corruption as much as possible. Gorthor could also have upkeep reduction for chariots, and upkeep reduction for the higher level beasts, based on the level of corruption in the local region, making Gorgons and Jabberslides a more common sight in his armies, where the lands are tainted by chaos. It would seem the obvious starting location for Gorthor would be near the mountain range to the west of Ostland, with his victory conditions focusing on the destruction of the Empire and perhaps Kislev, rather than the gathering of demon souls. He could start just to the north of the Middle Mountains in Norden, which is about 3 turns away from the border of Ostland, with Hochland being due south on the other side of the mountain range. However, if he were involved in the race for the souls, he could be driven by the dark visions, believing that sacrificing the bear god Urson would provide him with the raw power he needs to destroy the lands of men. Each soul gathered could act as a shortcut to unlocking the higher tiers of his mechanic, but the player still needs the ability to reach those tiers without bothering with the souls. So what are the odds that Gorthor the Cruel could be added in Game 3? Well, if he, or indeed any Beastman Legendary Lord does appear, then I think they will be added as an FLC, as I doubt that any more DLC slots will be afforded to them, since they have received their rework and are in a very good spot with their roster. Gorthor would indeed bring a more mobile playstyle, especially if he is mounted on his chariot from the start of the campaign. He could also bring a little bit of magic to the table, but while his lore is interesting, and he has a definite matchup against the Empire, there are more exciting options for the Beastmen, such as Gorthor's Warhoof and Moonclaw. There is also the slight matter of his death, though with characters such as Rapance and Vlad already in the game, that may not be as big an obstacle as one might think. Ultimately, I don't think we will see Gorthor added to the game. His niche is pretty much filled by Khazrak, and there are more popular options for Creative Assembly to pick. So there we have Gorthor the Cruel, one of the mightiest Beastlords to have troubled the Empire. Would you like to see him added as a Beastman Legendary Lord? What mechanics would you choose for him if you do? Let me know in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed this first video in this new series looking at potential Legendary Lords for Game 3. If you wish to vote on who I should cover next, then there will be a link in the description of this video. Or if you would like to suggest your own Lord, then just add it in the comments below. If you are not subscribed, then why not do so? I release a variety of Warhammer content each week for your entertainment. I can also be found streaming occasionally on Twitch. This video was brought to you with the help of my patrons. Thanks to Hot Apple Pie and Solarith Magnetar for their continued support. If you would also like to help out the channel, then you can check out the Patreon or become a member here on YouTube. I'm Grey Tiger, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.